Did you write the feeling stoked part in Bring on the Monsters for Kristen Stokes?
Oh, you better believe I did.
This is The Other 51. I'm Brian, and this week my guest is composer Rob Rokicki. My guest this week is a composer, a lyricist, a songwriter, and the man who wrote the music I've heard most in 2020, the soundtrack to the Lightning Thief musical. And also he's written a lot of the songs that my daughter has performed in theater over the last 5 years. Rob Rokicki, welcome to The Other 51.
Well, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations. We've almost made it through 2020 as we record this.
My Lord, here's to that.
So how is the year treated you? I know 2019 was an insane year for you professionally, but especially given the way theater has has stopped since March. What's this year been like for you?
It was kind of a year of reevaluation, which I think it was for a lot of my friends and colleagues. But it was also surprisingly a really fruitful year when it came to collaborations. Part of my kind of modus operandi after working on Lightning Thief was to work with other collaborators that didn't look like me or share my worldview. And I've been able to work with a lot of really, really wonderful people over this past year. And that's been really exciting and good for my heart, I think, too. Puts things in perspective. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been at. Just
what are some of those projects that you've been working on, and are they coming public? Are they in development? What are some of the things that's worked out?
Oh, they're all over the place in different things, and some are I work with people in different capacities. My friends in Japan, this wonderful woman Manatsu, and was a producer and asked me to be an advisor to her with the wonderful director Stafford Arima to do a kind of multinational song cycle. And so that was really fun at the beginning of quarantine to have a project and to focus with on helping other writers. And I'm really passionate about places that feel like they haven't had their stories told, having the agency to do that. So I've been trying to help my friends in Japan over the last couple of years. And I worked, I did some stuff in terms of raising money and those kinds of things with all altruistic stuff that makes you feel good with some friends in London and things. Yeah, I think that's part of what the quarantine was it just showed me that we're so interconnected. And so that's been really fun, just working with a bunch of different people. I'm working on a project with the wonderful Anna K. Jacobs for a new musical movie, which at the University of Nebraska, which should be fun. And I've been working on a project with a 5 different writing team project to kind of as a snapshot of where we're at right now in the world. And 5 different writing teams. And I brought on a writer that I really love named Rebecca Murillo. So she and I have been writing together too. So it's been fun working with a lot of different people. And I've been working with Sarah Beth Pfeiffer a lot as well on a musical called Experience Marianas, about a cult that I've been working on for the last couple of years too. So lots of little projects. And then I released an EP of just instrumental stuff. I made a creepy, spooky, stupid radio play. I've been trying to just make stuff to just that brings me joy and help people because it, it's a good feeling and it keeps me out of the staring into the abyss of what is on the horizon next. I'm just trying to keep making stuff,
Right. And how important is that, bringing in people who you said don't look like you, and full disclosure, we're 2 bearded white guys with glasses having this conversation. How important is that, especially in theater and in musical theater? I know there's been a lot of talk throughout the theater community this past year, especially spring, summer, about more BIPOC voices, more diversity in storytelling, more diversity in theater. So how important is that to be bringing in these new voices and these new stories and new points of view?
Well, I mean, it's for our industries to survive. It's paramount. And I would say that I think less about just diversity and more equity. And that's really the word that keeps coming around. And I mean, our industry is, I've faced it just in terms, to be blunt, of just classism in terms of genre and in the musicals that I've worked on and my friends have worked on. But it's a whole other ball of wax when we talk about just how how problematic our industry is, our entire entertainment industry, especially theater. There's such an old school way of doing things, and it's kind of perpetrated throughout the entire infrastructure of theater, and how we qualify and quantify something's worth with its cost and the economics of accessibility, and that's all intrinsically tied into race. And I think to make a more equitable theater community, we have to look at who's creating the art, who's producing the art, who owns the theaters that gets the accessibility to art, how we keep prices low to get more people from all different backgrounds to see theater. It's a larger conversation, and it's nuanced, and it's hard to have this conversation, but it's one that I think is important for our industry to survive. And I think like awareness has been, key to start change. And I hope, to be a part of that. I mean, obviously I come from a place of incredible privilege. And so I've been trying as much as I can to elevate the voices that I love and want, and maybe haven't gotten an opportunity. So I think that's not just my, something I believe powerfully in, but I think it's kind of my obligation, quite honestly. So yeah, I think it's paramount, and I hope that changes. And I don't know how it will, though. I think it's going to come from individuals, truly, and it's going to have to come systemically. It's
Right.
going to have to come like everyone kind of pulling their weight to help make that happen, and rather than just give lip service to things. It's making hard choices. It's doing the work, and I definitely even need to do more.
So you mentioned the work you've been involved with, not being kind of the traditional theater mold for musical theater, and obviously Lightning Thief is a big example of that. It's a rock musical, which is more common but still not traditional, and it's a YA material, which is not traditional musical theater, whatever that means, and I know we were just talking with my daughter beforehand. You've been working on this. You worked on this for a long time, and I know Lightning Thief had a crazy journey up until it was on Broadway last year. So just kind of talk about that how you got involved with that, and kind of working through the whole Lightning Thief process from when you first got involved to it being on Broadway last year.
Well, it truly is one of those things where if we had planned it, it probably wouldn't have happened, but it was just like all we wanted to do was serve the story, and that like paid off in spades. TheaterWorks has been creating adaptations of beloved children's books for like now 26 years or something, almost 30 years, I think. So Barbara Pasternak, the artistic director at the time, she had acquired the rights to Lightning Thief, which is a big coup for that company at the time. And we only thought we would be able to do it was a 1 hour production. We didn't think we'd have a New York sit down. It was like, super small, had to fit in a van. It was just going to tour. And we did a lot of workshops where we met with kids, and we met with, fans of the books, and we worked very closely with Rick's agents, Nancy and Marietta. And Joe Tracz, man, he really nailed it. He really nailed the tone of the book. That's our book writer, who I think book writers don't get enough credit.
I agree. Yeah.
In musical theater. Everybody blames the book writer when things don't go right, and they never appreciate it when things are going right because you don't notice it. But Joe, we talked really, really intensely about making sure the tone felt right, and that was what kind of served us, that idea that it's got to be zany and silly and fun, but the stakes have to feel real, and we have to have a lot of heart in this thing. It can't just be camp for camp's sake. It has to really feel like we care about these characters. So we had our work cut out for us, just because there was so much backlash towards the movies, and kind of what we tried to like look at the missteps and things that the fans reacted to negatively, and things that we reacted negatively to, and we just said, well, how can we get it back to the book? And that's what we used every time. So we created the short version as we created the 1 hour version. People liked it. It toured around, and then we we got this crazy thing happen where we got nominated for a Lortel Award, which is a pretty, nice, fancy off-Broadway award. I'm not one for awards, but when your little 1 hour musical gets nominated against Hamilton for outstanding off-Broadway musical, everybody's ears kind of perked up. And so we expanded it, and that was really exciting to like rip the show apart, which TheaterWorks had never done before, and to take, this epic adventure and make it a little more epicness. And the thing though that Stephen Brackett, our director, said about it was we didn't want to just add more stuff because the book is very densely heavy with plot, but it was more about like, how can we give the characters time to like to sit in their emotions and really feel like we're living with these characters. Just give the thing more room to breathe, quite honestly. And that was really fun. So we expanded that, released a cast album. It was like the biggest pre-sales in Broadway Records history. It was wild. I got some other nominations for some stuff, and then we thought the show was over. I mean, that's kind of the story. It was like we were done. We had a little tour. Great. Oh, we get to expand it. Yay. And we always had wanted to. And that show felt like kind of at the Lortel off Broadway felt like really special. And when that closed, we thought it was it. And then lo and behold, some producers said, hey, let's take this thing on tour. And I thought that's really exciting. And the show started as off-Broadway free summer theater too. So it was free. And I thought, wow, it's really exciting. We're in the midst of this election when we were writing this thing. And this story about, kids from broken homes telling their own kind of story, their own way about, inheriting a broken world, basically, and of their parents' mistakes and just having to like take their own agency to deal with it. I was like, that's a really exciting story to be able to like share with young people all over the country. And so we did a 38, I think, tour of the whole country, and that was amazing and incredible. We got to play some of the most beautiful theaters. It was a dream come true. And then we played the Beacon Theater in New York, which was wild, because I've seen so many rock shows there as a kid and played in bands, and I always wanted to play there. And we thought, again, the show was done. And then a theater opened up on Broadway, and they said, you want to move the show. So we basically used that as our last glorious stop on tour. So yeah, the most unconventional way to get to Broadway. It was just all about like, we did right by the fans. We tried to, at least, and we tried to stick to what made the show special in the first place. And it just, kept going.
Had you read the books before you got involved with the musical?
I hadn't. No.
Okay.
My mom is a history teacher, so she was big into having me learn the Greek myths as a kid. Clash of the Titans was like my favorite movie. I had a big book of Greek monsters. I love monsters. I'm born on Halloween with my twin sister. So like monsters, and especially Greek monsters, were a big part of my childhood. So I had a real affinity for it. And it really was Joe's script that turned me on. I just thought it was so well written. He had adapted it as a play first.
Okay.
And then they said, we really want it to be a musical, and we think it should be angsty rock music. Who do we know that writes rock music? And they reached out to some composers, and I think it was Joe Iconis that said, hey, a buddy of mine who said, yeah, Rob, you need to submit some songs for this. So there's a couple demos from different writing teams, and they listened to mine, and that's how it ended up being a good fit.
Okay. So as you were starting to, either with the demos and then starting to write the music for this, I mean, like you said, and I didn't realize this until my daughter got involved, but the fandom of Percy Jackson is intense. Like, matters. It
matters a lot to them.
Yeah, and so
matters a lot to me. Yeah.
So what was it like for you as a writer coming into this world and trying to, like you say, do right by the story, do right by these characters that are so real to so many people?
I think all you have to do is focus on the work. I mean, like, it's easier said than done, but like, I would get overwhelmed if I just thought, oh, I'll be disappointing XYZ. I just was like, okay, how does Percy talk? Do as much research as I can to get in the world of each one of these characters. How does Annabeth talk? There's a snark to the books in a very wonderful irreverence that to them. Rick Ryan leans into the dysfunction of Greek myths in such a beautifully fun and strange way, rather than kind of glossing it over or slicking it up. And I think the messiness of that was really appealing. And personally, I was going through a lot as a person, and as a writer. So I think I connected very deeply to the angst of Percy. He was really fun to write for. And I think when you're having fun and you're just focusing on, okay, what's the next scene? What has to happen here? How do I get in this guy's head? I'm not thinking about all the other things. I can't. I just have to focus on, does this song make me feel something? And does it serve the story? And that's all I can try to do. And we, like I said, Nancy and Marietta were very hands-on. They were like, oh, you can't combine this character. Oh, this is right. Don't do that. And when we tested it out the first time with kids, I mean, young people, they're brutally honest. They'll let you know. They will let you know. So we had to cut our teeth, like that, kind of battle tested, workshop after workshop. It was a real luxury. Not a lot of other shows do that much R&D. Like we really did.
So, in thinking back to those early workshops with the brutally honest kids, can you think of, or can you remember any particular piece of feedback or anything that maybe stands out that maybe they were very vocal in not liking that you were able to change, or like a great reaction that they might have had to something that you had down there and they're like, nope, sorry, like a movie type reaction to that they would have had?
There was a couple moments where we tried to combine characters just because we had such limited real estate in terms of storytelling. We had to do this whole thing in an hour originally. So I think we had looked at trying to combine Annabeth and Clarice, which just doesn't work. It doesn't work, and that's something that the movies tried to, and it doesn't work. And then very quickly we learned no. So we actually never had we only had I think a partly reading with a couple kids that saw a version where it was sort of like that. Okay. There was a version though that I'm thinking where we had kind of Hades and Ares as the same character as a combined bad guy, and that also didn't work. And it also informed how we told the story again. We're like, all right, fine, we have 6 actors and they're going to play 30 characters, and that's just how we'll deal with it. And then when it came time to expand the show, we were like, are we going to try to add more actors? We're like, we'll add one more actor and they'll play 40 characters. But it was so fun, like the metamorphosing of the actor into the character in real time. And it's still funny. The 7 actors come out at the end on Broadway or wherever, and the audience is still people like, wow, where are the rest of the actors?
Right.
They did everything. They're all off stage singing. They're all running around. It's wild. But yeah, that was a lot of the things, was the trying to combine moments, just because for story beats, it's a little more elegant to clarify. I mean, there's so much world building to do. And it's a first book of a 5-part book series of the several books series, that all these other spin-off series and things. And, how much real estate are we given to explain this world for someone who hasn't ever seen or read a book of these? It's like we had to still distill it down to the core elements of what is this journey and how do we care about this person for someone who's never read the books. So that was the constant battle, was trying to find the balance of what is essential and what are meaningful moments. So we polled some young people, and they were like, what's your most iconic moment that you loved from the book? And a lot of people said the fight on the beach with Ares. And I think there's kind of a double climax of the show. One is kind of the physical one where he bests Ares, Percy beats Ares, spoiler alert, by using his powers. And then the second is the kind of emotional climax where Percy's learned from his journey, and instead of falling prey to revenge and anger, he kind of forgives his dad, and that's the second climax with Luke. So structurally, that we had to kind of figure that out, and that was really tricky. But that was why we kept that Ares fight on the beach. It was really important to us, and for the fans. So yeah, they informed things like that.
The music, and what I hope this isn't damning with faint praise. I don't mean it to be, but my daughters listen to it all the time because she's all into the universe, and I've listened to it, and I listen to it all the time too because I love the music. I think we're very similar in our musical backgrounds and in our musical tastes. A lot of angsty guitar rock in my life.
Oh yeah, me too.
And just like some of the songs in this, like put you in your place, like that's a heart song. I think you've mentioned Annabelle, My Grand Plan is a total Ben Folds 5 song to it. So like, how did you kind of adapt your kind of rock background or like your music, and how did you like figure out, okay, Annabeth's going to sound like this, a Percy song's going to sound like this? How did you get the music to fit into the show?
It just had to do with thinking about their character traits and sometimes I jump around on different instruments. So Percy, he's angsty. So I used electric guitar, and he's very explosive, and ADHD and dyslexia. So like he's impulsive. And so I think like part of that went with big octave jumps vocally too. So I would look at a lot of bands from like Jersey bands in particular, the kind of like everyman-ish of Bruce Springsteen, but also like My Chemical Romance and or Bon Jovi and things like that. And I always loved like the glockenspiel, which I think is like in like a song like Born to Run is such like a symbol of hope to me for some weird reason in rock songs. I just love that. So I was always kind of thinking orchestrally too about the sound and the world of this thing. Like Annabeth is very analytical. So yeah, you mentioned Ben Folds. Obviously, I love a lot of piano rock and Elton John but I feel like there's a whole generation of musical theater writers that were influenced by Ben Folds. I had a very eclectic childhood, though. My parents only listened to classical music growing up. So I had a lot of like, in the earlier versions of Lightning Thief, I had a lot of like more classical references. There was a lot of like Gustav Holst's The Planets, but played on electric guitar kind of stuff. But like Annabeth, she's very analytical. So I thought a Rhodes sound on a keyboard felt very like computer-like and notey, and it was fun. I think she's the closest to kind of like I relate to that character the most. So like that was some of the most fun songs to write. And Grover, he's like a sweetheart, so he's a little hippie guy. So I wrote a lot of stuff on acoustic guitar for him. So that would depend on the things. And you're right though, for like Put You in Your Place, I reached out to a buddy of mine and tried to find out, okay, what is the perfect AC/DC guitar riff, and then listen to a lot of Pat Benatar and a lot of Heart and a lot of just like for Clarice to try to get in the headspace of that. And sometimes it was about simplifying to just what's the core of that, what is the essence of a riff that feels really good, and those kinds of things that would help with the character. I think some of the hardest sequences are like once I established like the motifs, like Poseidon's theme and stuff like that, then I could play a little bit more. But there's no way I could have written a sequence like Son of Poseidon, which has like 6 different themes in it early on in the process. That was definitely like a 11 o'clock, write it under a ton of pressure in like 3 days, but kind of thing. But by then, when I was cooking, once I had thought of all these characters for almost 7 years, I was able to like access how to write quickly for these characters, and throw things up for the actors constantly. We tried things every day. I mean, George Salazar was such an incredible comedian in the room. He's such a chameleon and so funny. One day we were like, would you just try reading Mr. D, the like grumpy camp counselor? And he was so funny that I wrote the Another Terrible Day song while we were in rehearsal. I like ran into a practice room, took Joe's dialogue, and just like consumed it and turned it into lyrics. And then by the next day we had the song for George, and the cadence of that angry grumpy guy felt like very jazzy, so I used like that. So I sometimes key all of those things. I'll be like whether or not it's a major key, a minor key, a bright key, sharps and flats and all that thing. It depends on the character I'm writing for and the moment of the show. Like Last Day of Summer, I was just chunking back and forth between suspension chords on a guitar, and that felt good until I figured out what I wanted to say.
So what was that collaboration process, right, like with Joe? I mean, obviously musical theater is a hugely collaborative art form and a writing format. And you said he had the script when you came on board. He had a script as a play. So kind of, and as you were expanding it, what was that collaboration like, and how did that work?
Well, Joe had, again, like just this beautiful little play of kind of people around a campfire telling stories. And that was kind of the start, the genesis of the thing. But it very much changed after that to the kind of the show that you kind of see it as now. But the spirit of that idea of like we want to invite you to camp. We want everybody welcome. We want young people to feel like they could like do this show themselves and be on stage making these things. Like that's part of how we told the story came about in the rehearsal process. So it was collaborative on all fronts. Like Stephen Brackett, our director, or our original choreographer, Sam Pinkleton, had ideas that helped shape songs, as well as, all our Barbara Pasternak, our artistic director. I mean, we all worked really hard on problem solving. So any idea in the room was a good idea, and that's kind of how we operated to try to solve things.
So not just, I know we've talked a lot about Lightning Thief, but you've also worked and do a lot of work with adapting musicals to youth musicals and working with Musical Theater International. My daughter freaked out. She was doing Fame Junior at her youth theater, and she's looking in her script, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's Rob Rokicki's name's in this. He worked on it." I'm like, "Yeah, he probably did."
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about that process. You take a full 2.5-hour Broadway musical and condense it to a 60-second show. 60-second, that'd be fun. 60-minute show for kids.
We're done.
So what's that like? How does that process work?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have worked for the last couple of years with a wonderful company called iTheatrics, and headed by Timothy McDonald, and we take and adapt Broadway shows, off-Broadway shows, and create 1-hour versions of those. And we work with the Department of Education. We work with a team of educators and directors and theater companies from across the nation and all over the world. Now we do the largest theater festival for young people in the world now, called the Junior Theater Festival, which we're about to have the first virtual one of those in January. It's kind of like Bonnaroo and Coachella for middle school musical theater fans. It's something I wish I could have had when I was younger. But what's great is, we have like a whole team. There's not very many of us in the office, but what we do is we have a team. There's Marty Johnson, who's worked for years as an educator and a developer, and Lindsay Weiner, who's Loopy. She's also someone that we take we distill the story down. We try to make it more inclusive. We try to find ways of expanding the ensemble. We try to find ways of getting more kids involved, working on keys, working on ranges, all of those kinds of things. And we work with the authors, everyone from Stephen Schwartz to Stephen Sondheim to, we've done a Heather's High School edition that is actually really powerful to see high school kids do that show. And Larry worked on that show, and wrote new material for it that now is licensed with that version of the show. It's taught me, I basically work on music directing some other shows, especially the rock shows. And I work on layout. So I make everything look pretty and as like a copyist. But what it's taught me watching my, office mates, create these versions of shows for MTI or St. French or whoever is economy and storytelling.
Okay.
It's taught me so much. I think back to that like scene in A River Runs Through It, where the dad is like going through the book, and is like less words. My dad used to actually do the same thing with my essays. I was an English major and musical theater major in college, two things that you make a lot of money doing growing up. But the idea of like, what is it, the essence of something is really, really helpful to look at when adapting a musical, and just trims the fat. And, it's really exciting because as a team that has objectivity on the property, they can take a look at something and say, okay, what is really Shrek about?
Right.
And they make a Shrek Junior. And it's funny how that informs like sometimes the show itself, when it goes back, the full length show. But yeah, it's been a real joy to work with that team. It's been like a family for me the last almost 10 years to work with those folks. So I miss them very much.
And speaking of the beats in Percy Jackson and in Lightning Thief, it's got to be similar too when you're doing, when you're adapting Broadway shows for kids, because you have certain songs in a show that are you got to have, and right. You got to have, but then some songs, whether they're not age appropriate or story appropriate or what, that's, again, kind of figuring out what you have to keep and what you can't keep.
Right. And as we started this thing as a 1-hour show, and none of the main songs that people associate with the show were in that version.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there was no Good Kid wasn't in there. My Grand Plan wasn't in it. There was kind of an abridged version of Train to Hell. There was like Son of Poseidon wasn't in it. The OA wasn't like all the kind of the big songs. Put You in Your Place was. I think there's only like 3 or 4 songs that have survived that 1 hour version. But so now going back and knowing that the show is going to soon be, you know, out in the world for licensing and things, you know, soon, we'll have to go back and try to figure out, now that we have the full thing, how do we create a new 1 hour version of this thing,
right,
as well, that incorporates some of the things that we've learned in this larger incarnation.
Yeah. Well, my daughter wanted me to let you know too that Fame was her favorite show that she's ever done. So
Fame,
yeah.
Acting, it's the hardest profession in the world. Hard work.
She was dancing is the hardest profession in the world. So I ask all of my guests that I have on this, so I'll ask you, what is the best thing that you've read lately?
Best thing that I've read lately? Oh man, you put me on the spot. I really enjoyed the Golem and the Ginny.
Okay.
I can't remember the author. She's Helene Recker.
Okay.
I also read a book called oh my God, it's literally on my bookshelf right over there. I might have to grab it on the way out. It's about these it's like an escape. These two guys are it's like a fight for their lives. It's called The River.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of the name of that author. He's written The Dog Stars and a bunch of other books. It's a thriller, but it's like just beautifully written. Kind of Dog Stars is also a gorgeous book, kind of post-apocalyptic tale of a guy and his dog. And yeah.
Very
anyway,
cool.
So stuff like that.
And one thing I like to ask, given the state of theater and the state of the world as we go into hopefully a better year in 2021, what are some ways that people who are interested in, who love theater, what can they and us, what can we do to support theater and the people in theater right now until summer, fall, and things start to hopefully get back to where they were?
Well, I think there's a couple things you can do on the national level, right? Like write to the president. You know, we're a billion, you know, multi-billion-dollar industry that I just read is more lucrative than like mining and agriculture combined. And yet we don't have a lot of, a safety net for so many people who are out of work right now. So donating to places like the Actors Fund is really helpful. Broadway Cares. But you can also support on a local level. So if there's a regional theater near you that is doing a streaming play or something, or they need a little bit of help, if you can, a little goes a long, long way. And it makes a big difference, especially if you're able to be, even just sharing information about the theater or an actor or an album that you love, or it really does help. It pays off.
All right. I'll put links to all of those and some regional theaters in show notes so people can donate if they want to. And Rob, this has been awesome. My daughter thanks you, and I thank you. Best of luck and Happy New Year.
Oh, thanks so much. Happy New Year. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Show notes for this and all of our episodes can be found at sportsmediaguide.com by clicking on the Other 51 tab. If you like the show, please consider giving it a rating and a review, either at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help people find the show. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.